Hi guys, welcome back to another video. So today I was thinking about doing something a little different once again, just doing a little film recommendation series. So for last night I watched this movie called Lilya Forever, and it was really tragic and really depressing, and to be honest, I don't remember the last time I've watched a movie that like truly moved me the way this movie did. And it's called Lilya Forever. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing her name right. It's based on a true story, and it's spelled like Lilja, like forever. And it's a Russian film about this 16-year-old girl who is living in poverty, and it's just trauma after trauma. Her mom abandons her to like move to America, and then her aunt, who like neglects her, kind of becomes her caretaker, but like not really, because she doesn't take care of her like at all, and she's pretty much on her own. And so she starts to get into like prostitution to take care of herself, and along the way she meets this like younger boy who still hasn't like quite gone through puberty yet. He looks very like youthful, and he's kind of like a little brother to her, and they form like their own family, and they support one another in this extremely bleak, sad, depressing environment. And she looks after him. His own family abuses him and doesn't love him, so they're really like each other's like hope in the world. And eventually, with that being said, like being forced into prostitution because of poverty is not ideal. And so one of these nights when she's like at a bar, she meets someone who is very attractive, and he's not like any of like the older gross men that she's been forcing herself to have like sexual relations with. And he seems to genuinely care about her, and he wants to go on a date with her, and he promises her, like, I don't want you just for sex, like I really care about you. And he makes a proposition, like, I'm moving to Sweden soon, I want you to come with me. And he's like, I promise you I'll find you a job there, everything will be wonderful. And she's so excited, as any 16-year-old any 16-year-old girl in that situation would be, like head over heels in love with this guy. He's conventionally attractive, he's promising her a better future, and she's been starved of love her whole life, has a really like complicated relationship with her mom. So anyways, I don't want to spoil everything, but it's a really awful tale of sexual abuse. And to be honest, you probably shouldn't watch the film if sexual assault or sex trafficking would be very triggering to you, but it's just so insane. And this is kind of my own theory of the movie, if you ever have the chance to watch it, is that her mom all of a sudden decides to like leave for the United States because she used this like, you know, app in which you can meet like American men, and it's for like Russian women. And she claims like her boyfriend at the time is Russian, and he convinces her to move to America with him very suddenly. And her mother was also a prostitute, and so my conspiracy theory is that there's a slight chance that the mom was also exploited and taken advantage of in the United States. Of course, that's not confirmed in the movie or not, and I could be misinterpreting that. Maybe the mom just abandoned her, you know, for no other reason than like a selfish reason. She just wanted to leave. That could be a possibility. But it's really a story, it's a tragic story, and it's really depressing, and it's just a lot of the scenes that took place I just couldn't watch. I just had to close my eyes through it because it was just too painful to watch. And I don't know. And then it also kind of talks about like the afterlife a little bit, and it's just and it's about how us as human beings try to like psychologically comfort ourselves during just unbearable abuse, how we try to disassociate and use our imagination to conjure up like loved ones from our past in order to make the present moment survivable. And it's a great movie. Honestly, it's head and shoulders above anything else I've watched lately, and I'm trying to get back into like, you know, serious like film watching, because in the past I enjoyed doing that and I kind of like stopped, but now I want to get back into it again because I don't know, it's an amazing art form and you can learn so much from it. And clearly like the director of this film had so much empathy for the main character and showed like the beauty and the sorrow of her short life on this earth. And I don't know, I would definitely watch that. I just realized, I don't know, but also the soundtrack is really amazing. It goes hard. It's like clubbing music, but it's like early 2000s like Russian like clubbing music. I'm not sure if I'm like describing it properly, but also it's like really intense like metal as well. Like the first scene is just like a hardcore metal song, and I was just like, it just totally just like, the opening scene even is just like straight away tells you that this is going to be a really awful, tragic story of like human suffering. And it was just like, and just the chaos that is our existence. And I'm sorry if you hear a lot of like cars in the distance. I live like very close to the road, so I don't know if I could find a way to make those like sounds go away. Also, another movie I watched recently is called The Walkabout, and it was made in the 70s. This movie stuck with me so much, and it has like a very like circular structure that is very satisfying, and it's about this like Australian family. The first scene is just pure chaos. It shows them like in their apartment complex. There's like a swimming pool outside. They're living in this like urban center in Australia, and he takes his kids out into the middle of the nowhere, like out in the middle of the desert, and he's like, we're gonna have a picnic. And they set up everything. They lay down like the picnic blanket. They have everything set up to like have a nice enjoyable afternoon out in nature. And all of a sudden he starts chasing after his kids and shooting them. So the first scene is of a father trying to shoot and kill his teenage daughter and his son, who must be around like 9 to 10 years old, if not younger. And these two kids have no idea how to survive in the wilderness because they've been raised in this very like posh, privileged, Western society. Like for example, they go to private school, so they're wearing like uniforms like out in like the blazing desert heat. They're dehydrated, they're exhausted, they're fatigued, they're very close to death. But fortunately for them, they encounter an indigenous young man who's like Aborigine, and he shows them how to survive, and he helps them survive. He shows them how to find water, and he hunts for them, helps them, and he tries to bring them back to quote-unquote civilization. I hate to use the word civilization because for me there's such like a negative connotation that those who choose to live out in nature are somehow uncivilized, so I need to find like a better word to replace like civilization. But basically he's like their guide in this extremely harsh climate, and they kind of become friends. They find a way to communicate with one another, even though there's like a language barrier. And I don't want to spoil it either, but it's also a very tragic ending. But what I will say is the main characters who were, you know, abandoned in the wilderness by their father, they do make their way back to quote-unquote civilization. And the ending scene, like how it was shot in this like circular fashion where it's set in the same place where it began, it really shows how detached from nature we are in like Western civilization. Like, we don't know how to survive on our own in the wilderness. We don't know how to grow our own food. We don't know anything about nature. We're so disconnected from it. It's just painful. And I would argue, I honestly want to do an analysis of this film, but if I were to do an analysis of this film, like, in depth, I would have to spoil, like, every part of the film, and I don't think that's good to do. But honestly, like, I just feel that to be true. Like, I just wish, because through, like, the Industrial Revolution and through the nuclear family and stuff like that, we're isolated now more than ever from each other. People feel so lonely these days and have like no sense of community or belonging or purpose. And I think oftentimes there's a part of me that yearns for these quote-unquote simpler times in which everybody had a role in their community. Everybody had a very clear, distinct purpose in serving one another in their communities, whether that be, weaving baskets or making pottery or hunting or whatever it may be. Everybody has something to contribute, and there's less of this like competitive, because in capitalism you have to have a certain skill. I mean, in capitalism it's just so competitive and it's so hierarchical, and we're so alienated from one another, and it incentivizes selfishness more than it does community building and selflessness. And I think there's a part of me that wishes that, because I do think community is sacred, and cultural beliefs and all of this stuff, they have a purpose, and like ceremonies and rituals, they have a purpose to mark, it's like a rite of passage. And of course we have that in our like quote-unquote civilized modern age, like graduation ceremonies, weddings, so on and so forth, but they're so tied to like capitalistic, linear, heteronormative ideals. Like, once you graduate high school and you have your little like ceremony, it's like, yes, it's an accomplishment, you have your high school diploma now, but now it's expected of you, if you were raised in a very privileged society, or community, then you're expected to, once you're 18, 19, decide what you want to do for the rest of your life, whether or not you want to go to college, which is like a huge risk and like a huge investment that most people can't afford. And then after those 4 years of college are over, like, let's say you decide to go to like college or a trade school, then you're working like a 40-hour work week for like the rest of your life. And it just sucks. And then now you have like remote work where you don't even have to like show your face on Zoom most of the time. And I just think it's just so bizarre. It feels so unnatural, and that's because it is. Like, we are meant to live in community, and we're meant to live a much more simple lifestyle. And right now we're just like so overstimulated, and for what? And it's just like we're constantly addicted to dopamine in any way we can get it. And it's just, so watching this movie, The Walkabout, I just feel like in such an amazing way it just showed how much we've lost as a group of people through like colonialism and like white supremacy and all the destruction of the earth. It's just like everything that we've lost, and also not only everything that we've lost, but everything that we could have had if we only respected and honored nature in one another as human beings instead of trying to conquer and dominate other groups of people.